All right, it's 3 p.m. It's 3 frickin' p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am not done my snack, but here we are. Here we are. It's another day. It's another week. It's me. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's Tuesday, January the 21st. I am 3 weeks late to our stream. Sorry about that. I am bad. I am bad at this. And I also got some gunk in my throat. That's what I get for drinking cream in my coffee here. Yeah, I'm bad. I've been pretty overwhelmed. Very busy. Lots going on. Also, I'm just tired a lot of the time. Now, a lot of the time I do a lot of work and then I'm tired. Or sometimes I'm just depressed and I'm tired. Or sometimes I just am overwhelmed by existing. You ever get that? You ever get overwhelmed by existing and you just don't? You should try it sometime. It's invigorating. But here we are on this Tuesday to have another draft diary. It has been quite a while. It took me ages to finish that last video because, as mentioned previously, I'm busy. Hey, hi everyone. I'm busy. I do things outside of the void. Outside of this area here, I have a life. And sometimes life gets in the way of making dumb, bad videos that no one ever watches. No one ever watches? Yeah, that still worked out in the end, right? Anyway, how y'all doing? How's the new year treating everyone? I hope it's well. I hope the new year is going okay. You've had 3 weeks. Hopefully you figured it out. I mean, there's an evil orange man and his fascist cronies living in the Oval Office. So that's bad. That's pretty bad. We should try to fix that one. Maybe not let that fester for 4 years. Just saying. If the evil orange man invades North, I'm going to have a problem. But, I've got the void to escape into. And by the void, I mean I'll probably pack up and move to Europe or something. But, the void's pretty safe for now. It's got a coffee, right? It's got half a coffee. It's still pretty hot. I had to guzzle this thing. Guzzled it, and I still couldn't finish it. I only had like 8 minutes to eat my snack. I didn't even get to eat my banana. I got my banana sitting right here. What am I gonna do with the banana? It's just gonna sit here all stream, taunting me. I'm probably just gonna ignore it. That's what I'm gonna do. Here we are with another draft diary. We've got chapters 30 and 31 to go over today. This is going to be our last double whammy episode, and it might be our last stream for the draft diary anyway. It might be our last draft diary. Oh, let me start that again. It might be our last draft diary stream. There we go. Got it in two. Because I'm busy. It's hard to keep up with us. Going forward, the next episodes are going to be very boring, very long, and very dry. And I figure I might as well just cut out the middleman and just directly record. It'll probably save time on my end. It'll probably be less editing because I'll be slightly more focused. Yeah. So we'll see. If there's not a stream next week, you know why. It's because this is becoming a burden on my life. Editing videos takes way more time. I don't even put that much effort into it, but it takes way more time than I have to put into them. That said, we probably will continue with our little game streams. I don't know if below might be the exception. We might have to... I might just record below. I might just record it and the ending and see what happens. Because we are in a sticky spot, and I have been racking my little box brain for weeks on how we're going to go about finishing below, because we're really in a sticky spot there. But that's for me to find out and for you all to enjoy viewing in the future. Ideally, I don't just drop the game because it's been a fun little game. But no, Robin, you will still have your job. We're just not going to do draft diaries anymore, at least for the foreseeable future in this format. We might do something similar going forward. We might do like a draft 2 summary. I'll probably do draft 2 updates as I write, and people can tune in and go, oh, wow, okay, that's how draft 2 is going. I might do little videos and go, hey, everyone, hello, everyone. I completely rewrote chapter 5. Haha, I hope you don't mind. Here's a sneak peek. And they'll just be little videos, and then we'll probably just draw and hang out for a little while. I don't know if that'll happen on Tuesday or what, but hey, we're 5 minutes in, and I have not talked about chapter 30 nor chapter 31, so let's rectify this. And we can start off by coming over here and scrolling all the way up, because I'm way out of place over here. Don't mind me, just play some bossa nova in your head. Oh, I got there really fast, actually. Yep, there's chapter 30. Hello, chapter 30. How are you? Doing well? Yeah? Okay, well, that's good to hear. At least things aren't bad. Yeah, let's start off with our little summary. I got some post-it notes here. Listen to this shit. Oh yeah, those post-it notes. That's a stack of 5 post-it notes right here. Don't get better than that, folks. Yeah, let me do our little chapter summary here. So we've got chapter summary. We've got chapter 30 pupil here. The chapter begins pretty much exactly where we left off. As mentioned in previous episodes, there's sort of a fading in and out between these chapters. There's not a concise end nor beginning to any of them during this dream sequence. So chapter 30 here begins, ? With a loosening of Teal's perception. Teal doesn't really understand what's going on. She's just sort of thinking. But when she comes to, she finds herself within an old classroom at her academy, at the academy that she studied at. And she's pretty confused. She's basically, I don't want to say beckoned, not annoyed, bothered. She finds herself in a discussion amongst her peers, or she's pretty sure they're her peers anyways, and she's pretty confused, but she just rolls with it. These people seem to know her, she seems to know them, so she's just like, okay, whatever. She's just chit-chatting with her peers. And I'm going to say this now before I go any further. I'm glossing over details here, right? This is a summary. You all are smart and have brains. This is a summary, so I'm not going to tell you literally everything that happens. Large swaths of these chapters are very easy to surmise too, so just try to keep up. And if things are confusing, then it's probably because they are confusing, because this is a dream sequence, and I don't want to get into that right now. But Teal's in this class, and she's pretty confused, but she's just chilling. She's just going along with the vibe, right? Anybody who's been to post-secondary academia understands that the vibe is just go with the flow. You just go with the flow because things are confusing and stressful, and constantly you're just always hungry. Doesn't matter what you're doing at school. If you live in college, if you go to university, you're just always hungry. There's never enough food for your brain. So Teal packs up her things from this classroom, a bell rings, and she packs up and leaves. She finds herself wandering around the hallways of this school. And the hallways really don't make any sense, but she's okay with that because she is just like, yeah, okay, this is just how school goes. Schools are like that, right? And anybody who's ever been to post-secondary education, anybody who's ever gone to college or university just knows, you just know, this place don't make no sense. Where do those stairs go? Oh, who goes to that classroom? No one. No one uses that classroom. Why is it there then? Move along. Move along. Don't you have food to eat? Don't you have to go to the gym or something? Teal doesn't. Teal's just bumbling around, but she sees weird staircases and dumb classrooms and goes, yeah, that's just supposed to be there. So she carries on her merry little way. She's got her books. She's going to a different class, she's pretty sure. And eventually she makes it there. Eventually she makes it to the class she's looking for, whatever class it's meant to be. It is a different classroom, though. She's pretty sure, like, yep, this is different from the place I was previously. While she's here, she does a really bad job of focusing on her schoolwork, if you can believe it. If anybody has ever been to college, if you've ever been to university, you know that the number one thing you don't want to do in class is do your schoolwork. So Like, I've been there, right? We've all been there. We've all been in class and been like, I don't want to do this. So she's really struggling. She's having a bad time focusing here. And as her mind wanders, she notices, oh, this is weird. I'm in a different classroom now. Oh, this is weird. I'm in a different classroom now. And this happens a few times as the threads of her mind kind of unravel. While she's not able to clasp at one thread of thought, there are multiple threads spinning themselves in different directions. And if you've ever been to college or university, you know that, wow, when you're sitting in class, it is impossible to think about anything. But your mind just wanders and wanders and wanders, and if you're lucky, maybe you make it out of there alive. But whew, oh Nelly, a lot of us don't. So she's going through all these classrooms, and she departs the final room. We have this segment here where there are things that are a little more concrete. She's planning her future. She thinks there are things that are happening. She's trying to rearrange her schedule. And then it dawns on her, wait a minute, wasn't I doing something? And this crops up again and again. This isn't the only instance of it. I see that my college and university bit has lost me a viewer, which is really tragic because, hey, if you've ever been to college or university, you know that, well, you just know, right? You just know. It's just something you know. If you've ever gone to college or university, you just know. And if you know, then you know, right? IKYKY. No, I did that backwards. Whatever, moving on. So Teal has this moment where she's pretty confused and she suddenly finds herself walking along another corridor. However, this one is dreary, it's drab, it's dark, it's foreboding, and she finds this pretty spooky. She doesn't like this, but she's just going to keep walking even though the corridor is weird because she's got to get to where she's going. She doesn't know where she's going, but she's got to get there. And as well as she's walking, that she is ambushed by a cadre, a group of her peers. And they, in very panicked tones, very rushed sense, explain to her, Teal, you're going to be late. Teal goes, oh, wait, late for what? And they explain to Teal, there's an exam. There's the final exams. The final exams are today, Teal, didn't you know? And if you've ever gone to college or university, you know, right? You know, those final exams, they come out of nowhere. They just hit you over the head. They surprise you out of the blue. It's not like they put them all in 1 week or something. They just come out of nowhere, come out of left field. So Teal's pretty spooked, and she follows her friends to the exam center. And there's a bit of a spiel. She feels really out of place. She feels really put on the spot. And she's definitely not prepared. She's definitely not ready for these exams. And she's conniving internally how to get out of the situation, but she doesn't have time because pretty much right at the end of the chapter, Teal is chosen. There's going to be these magical duels, and that's what they're being tested on. They're being tested on their magical prowess in the dueling form because Teal is really bad at that, of course. What are the odds? Teal having to do an exam on something she's really bad at in a dream sequence. So Teal's got to do this magic exam, and she's trying to connive a way out of it. And before she knows it, she is called on basically to go first. And it's in this segment here of Teal being thrust center stage into the focus of everyone. The world is kind of melting around her because she's anxious, she's scared, she's fearful, she's stressed out. That we suddenly just shift. We just shift very casually between the chapters. And I'll set it up a little bit better for you. Teal gets up on this arena. She's thinking to herself, okay, well, I just got to get through this. As long as I put on a decent performance, I'll still pass. Maybe I won't get the best grade, but whatever. I just got to do my best. And her heart's pounding. She's sweating like crazy. Knees weak. Arms spaghetti. Is that how that goes? I don't listen to a lot of Eminem. So she's ready for this duel, but she turns around, and who should be there? Who should be ready to face her but chapter 31. It's her rival. And chapter 31 is like pretty big. There's a lot of magic that goes on, but it's like 2 post-it notes. It's really easy to summarize. So we're just going to dive right in. We're going to do a double whammy of the summaries. And I can do that because it's my channel. It's my video. Hello. Welcome to the video. It's mine. I own it. I mean, like, yeah, I do own it, don't I? That's kind of weird. I mean, do I? YouTube owns a lot of it. Let's be real. YouTube probably owns the video more than I do. But I digress. We're going to hop right into chapter 31 here because it smears into the ending of chapter 30. So there's not a reason to pump the brakes here. Let me take another sip of my coffee because it's going to get cold. Yeah, it's getting cold. There's like 2 sips left. Let me chug this. That was one really big sip. I gambled. I took a gamble and I won. It was one big sip. My sipping scared away our second viewer. Hate to see it. If you've ever been to college or university, you know that drinking coffee scares people away. Because you got to drink a lot of that stuff. You got to maintain course. You got to stay on route. And how are you going to do that, right? You're sleep deprived. You're hungry. You go and find the nicest cafe on campus, and you slam back those cappuccinos. You mow down on macchiatos. You lap up those lattes. You crunch those coffees, right? You do what you got to do. You eat those espressos. Whatever you can do to keep caffeine in your body. You mow down on Monsters. You ravage on Red Bulls. You do what you got to do, right? Is this bit getting old? Is anyone getting sick of this bit yet? I'm not. Stick with this bit till the cows come home. Anyway, so chapter 31, right? We got Teal. She's facing her rival here. And we get a bit of details about the rival, but I'll leave that up to you to read the book if you want to know what the rival's like, because that's not my job right now. Teal, however, begins this chapter in a bit of a dither as she stands opposite the rival. They're both on opposite ends of this huge, daunting, unrealistically foreboding arena. She stands there. She's racked by fear. She's overcome by this trepidation that, not only do I have to do a duel that I'm not prepared for, I have to have a duel against the person I hate the most in the whole frickin' world. So that's not a good combo, right? Regardless of all of this, Teal stands her ground and she remains steadfast, and she cements this idea within herself that she's not going to go down without a fight, and she's going to try to win, right? She knows the rival is a dastardly sort, and she's not having any of it. And honestly, this is where I get to do a lot of hand waving, because the meat of this chapter is just Teal is a punching bag. Teal spends the majority of this chapter just getting beaten up. We have this little exchange here at the beginning. There's some jeers, but most of the chapter is Teal trying to assault the rival with various creative and interesting methods, right? Because Teal's whole thing here is she's not good at what you're supposed to be good at for a magic duel. The magic duel leans heavily on thermoplasty, which is like energetic magic, which sucks, right? Now, Teal's not good at that. Teal's like can maybe do the most basic thermoplasty spells, and meanwhile her rival is like, the cat's ass. He's the cream of the crop. He knows what he's doing. He's a bit of a pillock, let's be honest. And I think I just typed something in my notes, but whatever, I just won't save, and we'll move on with my life. We'll move on with my life. God, I'm losing it. Anyway, so Teal keeps assaulting the rival, and essentially she's just rebuffed every time. I think she does this 3 or 4 times with different tactics. You get a good sense here for Teal's creative thinking, for Teal's approach. She never really takes the initiative to play to the rival's strength. She's always trying to think of ways to play to her strengths and mitigate the rival's powers. In the end, though, things kind of just devolve into like a bit of a shouting match. She's sort of forced. She's on the defensive. She can really only block and send strikes, counterattacks towards the rival, but the rival is just so skilled they like flick these things away. Teal doesn't have the power in her arsenal to do much damage. It's pretty evident throughout here that the judges of this event are firmly against Teal. And throughout this all, Teal is essentially forced to run herself ragged. She gives it her all again and again and again, but like I mentioned, the rival forces her into a position where she's just, she has to try to, throw out her paltry repertoire of thermoplasty skills. And it, like, I invented this word, but I'm still pronouncing it wrong, so pardon me. I haven't devised a pronunciation guide. I don't have the IPA guide for my own words. Sorry, chat. So yeah, she's going against the judges, and the judges are essentially urging Teal throughout here to give up. They even offer her like, hey, you're gonna pass, just give up. Like, you're making a fool of yourself. But Teal is doggedly determined that she's either going to win or she's going to be defeated by the rival's hands. She's not going to bow out gracefully. She's going to bow out disgracefully. She is going to exit this arena bloodied and battered and bruised, just to make a point that, yeah, the rival is a total D-bag and will do that. That, or she wants to win and prove like, yes, I am better than this tool. So there's a bit of foul play that goes on here, where Teal is struck. I believe it's, where is it? Yeah, right in here, right in these few paragraphs here. Essentially, the judges like call a timeout to address Teal, and during that portion, sorry, one sec, I gotta grab a tissue. Holy moly. Sorry about that. It is like -20. It is so cold outside. It's cold inside. That's how cold it is outside. And so my nose is a little runny. I know what you're thinking. How can that little pink button on your face be runny? Well, just mind your own business, all right? Yeah, it's really cold. It's like -20 before the wind chill. And folks, let me tell you, it's windy outside. It's very cold. I just got back from a walk too, right? I do my walk before I do these streams, and my dog was not happy. I was pretty happy. I was bundled up. I have like a lot of layers on right now. I know it looks like I'm just wearing a sweater and like a cotton shirt, but I got some wool on under this. The sweater's wool. The bow tie is it's self-heating. So I'm warm. My pants are warm. My shoes are warm. I got wool socks on. I don't have shoes on right now. I live in a country where that's weird. Why would you wear shoes on indoors? Shoes are for outside. Just kidding. By country, I mean the void. It's weird in the void. You don't wear shoes in the void. Let me get back on track here so we can finish the summary. So there's some foul play that goes on. Teal is struck by a magic spell while she's not paying attention because she's kind of talking to the judges. And it's because of this foul deed that she's knocked unconscious. And I say knocked unconscious because it's sort of weird to explain. She's not so much knocked unconscious as she is, her consciousness is split forcibly. So during this last segment here of the chapter, she is both observing and doing. And it's meant to be a jarring experience for both the reader and Teal. More on that later. But yeah, the last bit of this chapter is pretty weird. So the doing Teal, right, and the observing Teal is seeing all this happen, but the doing Teal sort of resurrects herself, and in this state of fury, they summon this torrential blizzard, which threatens to freeze the rival solid. And Teal has this moment where she slowly encroaches in on them step by step, as the atmosphere gets colder and colder. Maybe this is why I was talking about how it's -20 outside. It gets really cold, and Teal is like forcing her magical pressure onto the rival to freeze them solid. However, the force of this blizzard, of this arcane energy, proves to be too powerful, and by the end of the chapter, the arena, the chamber in which the arena is in, kind of collapses. It can't stand the force of the energy. And we have this very like cut to black finish where we're not sure if the debris from the falling room has crushed Teal, if it's crushed the rival, if it really did anything, if any of this actually happened. Because like we just said, we get into this weird scenario where Teal's observing herself. She is unconscious. She comes back though. What's the deal with that? What's the deal with airline food? Honestly, I've been on a few planes. It's not that bad. I've never had bad airline food. Maybe that was a funny joke in the 90s, Mr. Seinfeld, but it's not anymore. Like I haven't had a bad food on an airline. I mean, sure, like the packed peanuts, that's kind of weird, but they're tasty. I'm not going to say no to packed peanuts. Okay, Robin had bad eggs one time. And honestly, they probably weren't even that bad. I bet they weren't. I bet they were fine. How do you screw up eggs? Anyways, that's the end of chapter 31. It ends with a bit of a bang, but we are still left in the lurch as to whether or not any of this actually happened. Chapter 32 picks up shortly afterwards. And we'll talk about that next time. But for right now, yippee! Hooray! That's it. That's it, everyone. Good job. We did it. That's the chapter summary. That's chapter 30 and 31 together in one double whammy, a 1-2 punch for the ages. And if you've ever gone to college or university, you know that the best way to get things done is in a mad dash the night before your projects are due. That's how you do it. That's how you stay afloat. That's how you stay winning. You get drunk all week, and then you go, it's Friday? Pardon me? I have assignments due on Monday, and you spend the whole weekend having a bad time and cramming all of your projects. Desperately writing emails to professors who will pity you because that's just how the world works. It turns out the world is more fun if you spend the week drinking. Am I right, folks? Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. Y'all know I'm right. Don't drink too much, folks. Party responsibly. Yeah, that's it. Hey, welcome to the stream, everyone. That's it. Just kidding. We got to go through the notes now. So let me scroll all the way back up. And you can tell by me scrolling, the two chapters aren't that long. Chapter 31 of the pair is longer, and that's more so just because a lot happens. Honestly, the bulk of chapter 30 is kind of lore. It's almost world building. And that's what I'm abusing this stream sequence for. I'm abusing it for world building, and we'll get into that in the notes, I think. But hey, speaking of some notes, let's get this party started. Let me put one hand here on my number pad and my other hand here. Y'all can't see how ridiculously I have to sit at my setup just to be able to press these buttons so I can go, hi, hee, and so on and so forth. What other ones do I have? Oh yeah, I've got the drawing one. I have a secret one. I've got the gaming one. I think I have the costume on here. Do I have the costume on here? I do, but it's greased out. That's funny. That looks ridiculous. The only way I got that costume to work on stream during Halloween was I had to pink screen it. I had to chroma key it in a completely different color. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. As seen just now. Yes, the rare transparent teal costume. That's for the second book. Let's dive into our notes here. Let's get going. Enough with the fun. Let us focus so that we can finish this and maybe do some drawing. Probably not, though. This is going to take some time. So this is just me complimenting myself. Yes, I do like that the chapters smear together. That is very fun. We don't really latch ourselves onto the idea that Teal is still thinking about the swain, though, which does leave a bit of a bump to this transition. We lean into this idea that Teal keeps thinking of like, wait, wasn't I waiting for someone? Wasn't I doing something? Wasn't somebody supposed to come get me? But we don't set it up very well. And so if we combine these two ideas to say, yes, hey, Teal, at the start, you were waiting for someone, weren't you? And then she starts to come to. We kind of delve in a little bit on this, and right? This is the next point. We touch a bit on her father's disapproval of her relationship. But there's really no need to bring it up here. Teal's feeling anxious, but the anxiety should be nebulous. They should be spread out. They shouldn't have a point to them. They might have a feature, they might have a visage to them of like this, wait, I should have been doing something. I should have been somewhere. I should have been with someone. How did I get here? She should have this confusion to her fears here, to her meditations, but they should never form a point that is so clear. If this is a point we want to explore more, then we should bring it up probably in the last chapter. That's probably something we should explore in the last chapter, but here it seems out of place. I guess I kind of already did this point, didn't I? Yeah, Teal should feel like she should be doing something, but she isn't. She feels like she's in the wrong place, but she ends up just kind of going with the flow because it's a dream. She doesn't want to make a fuss. She doesn't want to kick up a fuss. She's dreaming, so when one dreams, they just gotta go with what happens. And once you start fighting the dream, that's when you wake up. You're not dreaming anymore, are you? That's kind of like a philosophical debate right there, and I'm not ready to open up that can of worms. So we have this last little point is kind of, I guess it's this is more for me. This is more of a me note, and I guess I have to explain it because it's here. But we do some explaining in here that Teal feels smothered. She feels smothered by her thoughts, her sensations, by what's going on. And this is just me hearkening back to what we said before. Hey, hello, chapter, I think it was chapter 28, right? Chapter 28, the sage, yeah, 27's the night. So it was in chapter 27, 20. Yeah, I just did all of that just to say the wrong chapter. It was in 28. It was in chapter 28 that we're talking about how it's Teal's exhaustion that smothers her, that ultimately forces her to sleep. She is drowning in a sense, right? We talked about the river. We talked about how Teal is floating along. So we need to readdress this segment here where Teal is smothered by her thoughts and her worries. So that it's not trying to compete with that sentiment earlier. We want that sentiment. Her exhaustion is what smothers her. Her thoughts are probably, what's driving her to feel anxious, is what's driving her to feel nervous and afraid and fearful and stressed. Not so much smothered, right? She's not feeling smothered. She's feeling different things. So we just need to cut this out, so to speak. We need to prune this off and kind of dress it to be a different flavor. I have this idea here that her thoughts are like a maze, right? Because that's some good foreshadowing for later. Like they're a maze without an exit. She's having all of these thoughts, all of these worries about her future, about her past, about how people feel about her, especially with regards to her father and how her father would feel about her relationship with the swain. She feels like she's stuck in a maze, both due to her social situation, her standing, her familial life. She feels like she's in a place where she can't really escape from. And if we do that, if we use that whole maze thing, then we get to enjoy some foreshadowing and some good narrative. And that's what we want at the end of the day, right? Because if you've ever gone to college, if you've gone to university, what you want at the end of the day is something good. You want a Pop-Tart before you go to bed, because that's all you can afford. You want some Mr. Noodle before you go to bed, because that's all you can afford. And oh boy, that just gets you through each and every semester. Is having a Pop-Tart at night. I honestly didn't eat that many Pop-Tarts in college. It was more of a craft dinner and hot dogs kind of box. And like, what did I eat snacks? Well, what did I have for snacks? Not like Oreos. I probably bought like dollar store cookies. A lot of olives. I ate a lot of olives. And like deli meat. I ate a lot of deli meat. Deli meat's really cheap. If you get the stuff on sale, deli meat's really cheap. A lot of noodles though. I ate a lot of noodles. And like chips. Cheap chips. Yeah, nothing's coming to mind. I didn't. Oh, I know. Crackers and peanut butter. Crackers and peanut butter and honey. That was my go-to snack. That got me through a lot of sad, depressing nights in college. Which itself is pretty sad and depressing because that's not even like a snack. It's such like a cheap person snack. But here we are. So this idea that Teal is pulled from her thoughts by a classmate is fun. But I think we can adjust the shifting of the dream space more thoughtfully. She's ripped out of her thoughts by this classmate, and then she's just plunked into this space. We need to really establish the idea that the world around Teal has shifted while she has remained in place. We're trying to build this notion that Teal was, yes, she definitely was just standing there, and almost she blinked and there's the scene, right? The entire scene has shifted around her. Her outfit's different. Everyone around her is changed. The entire atmosphere has been altered, and she's really just caught up in the middle. She doesn't know why. Alternatively, maybe we just don't address it. Maybe we just scrap all of this as is. We're just like, no, Teal's just here. This is just where Teal is. This might add to the dreamy delirium that we're going for. I don't really have a preference one way or the other. For readers, it would be better to give them something than to exclude it. Because if we just exclude that Teal has, that she is in a different space, then we just kind of drop that on readers. We just kind of go, hey, hope you were keeping up. Hope you were paying attention, because she's here now. She's not there anymore. She's here. And readers might go, okay, well, where is here? Where was there? You didn't really set that up, did you? And I'll go, yep, I didn't. Get used to it. It's a dream, baby. So yeah, this idea that Teal slowly blanks, and when she opens her eyes, she's in this new classroom. And maybe she has this, she's not returning to a place. She's not returning to the present, because right now we say something like the classmate brings her back into the present. She returns, yes, as Teal returned to the here and now, she discovered that she wasn't simply sat beside a classmate, but was within a room among many of her peers. Okay, great. Maybe we just rephrase that. Maybe we just use some better wording to mean that, yeah, Teal has this notion that she's just been in class all along. What do you mean? There's no here and now. She's been here the whole time. She's been in class all day. Well, you think this half-elf is playing hooky? She doesn't do that. And if anyone says she does do that, they're dirty snitches. They're rats, and you shouldn't listen to them. Because Teal is innocent and pure and would never skip class. Even though I'm pretty sure later on we say that she thinks about skipping class because she does it very often. So, oops. I guess that makes me the rat. Squeak, squeak. But yeah, just some ideas on how we can reframe this scene. I don't think it needs a lot of work, but we need to solidify what we're going for here, because otherwise it's just airy, it's vapid. It doesn't project anything forward. It doesn't build any momentum, which is unfortunate, because this is where we need to start the momentum rather than just having the readers bumble through what's going on here. Another idea I had is that Teal's classmates here, which once again, her peers just remain unnamed because they are not really important. They're just kind of shadow dream people, and they don't really matter. Sorry, classmates, you don't really matter. This isn't your book. This is Teal's book, and it turns out Teal doesn't remember you very well. But I like the idea that those speaking to her aren't really saying anything. And I think this is something we bounce around, but we don't remain holistic on. There's a segment here where I describe how one classmate, here at the bottom of this paragraph, the boy sat in front of them, joined in, adding his woes to the situation. I like that non-committal third person quote-unquote speech. I think it builds these ephemeral shadow peers of hers a lot better than having them able to speak and address Teal. Right, and we can do this throughout the entirety of this dream sequence, where instead of having these characters speak to Teal, which is fine and good, but I'm trying to build a theme here. I think we should readdress this as their dialogue as an action, right? We can say something along the lines of, and I just wrote an example here, so I'll just say it out loud. Something along the lines of, like, a voice penetrated the barrier of Teal's mind, slipping past her rumination. It called her name to grab her attention. When Teal finally turned to face the speaker, she noted a classmate beside her who was now teasing the half-elf regarding their conscious state. Right? So we say what they're saying, but we never give it speech. We never say the words. We never quote them. And I think by doing that, right, by never quoting them, we build this barrier between Teal and her classmate, which is some bullshit subtext that you can read more into if you want to. But we're heightening this state of dreaminess. We're building this sense that, yeah, Teal's pretty darn sure there's people nearby, but what they're saying to her is more like a translation. She doesn't actually hear their words, but she knows what they're saying. She's able to reply to them and have a conversation, but it's more like the intention of the conversation is what Teal absorbs. I don't know about y'all, but usually that's how my dreams go. I might be talking to people, but I could never tell you what they said. I just know the gist of the conversation we had. I would never be able to be like, oh yeah, I had a dream about Robin last night and Robin called me a stinky, right? I would just know that, okay, yeah, in my dream, Robin was making fun of me. It's a similar notion here. And so I think I'm just going to do away with all of the quotes. Unless it's Teal talking, these shadow ghost students don't get any lines. I think I do the same thing later on with the professor. I'm just like, yeah, the professor said a thing, but no one was paying attention. And that's the kind of vibe we want to go for. We want to have these interactions, but we want to distill them down to not interactions, but just actions. These are just things that Teal observes and understands. She can participate, she can speak, right? It's her dream. She knows what she's saying, but what's being said to her is blurry, hazy, and inconsequential in the long run. So there's some weird, right? Going back to setting the scene, there's some weird logic here we use to build this classroom. And I think we could do a better job of setting up the scene, especially right now here at the start, because things kind of melt away later on. So I think if we do a good job building things up from the get-go, we'll have smooth sailing going forth. So things we could do, we could layer on descriptions of odd niche elements. We can play on this idea of Teal hyperfixating on various things that are really inconsequential, that don't have any bearing on the narrative at hand, but because she's dreaming, she's like, oh yeah, that thing that caught my eye. Thank goodness Robin was busy because they didn't hear me slandering their good name in vain. And we can even do this to build, we can tie Teal's attachment to certain things that she was really fond of at school. Stuff like the wood grain on tables, the lavish ceilings, the uniforms, the ink and parchment used at the school, anything. But we can use this microscopic view that Teal's coming in and out of to heighten, both the dream and things that she would be focused on. We also don't mention the light here. We really need to build the whole atmosphere of this classroom and all classrooms going forward, because we want there to be this sinister, off-kilter air. Maybe things aren't quite foreboding, but how should I want to put this? If there were ever an art direction, if this scene were ever animated, I would want it to have a visual air of unnaturalness, to have this preternatural quality, that nothing's quite right. Sure, yeah, light's coming in through the windows, but how is it doing that tone? How is it gray? How is it weird? As if, maybe they're existing here, but there's a different type of star in the sky, right? Like, it's not the sun, it's a different star. It's emitting blue light instead of warm yellow sunshine, right? Bullshit like that. So on top of that, and this is just a minor thing that I'm sticking in here, there's a student that mentions alchemy homework, right? And stick with me here. There's a student who mentions alchemy homework, and I don't think this sentiment is wrong, but it does not line up with the rules of magic that I've laid down. And I don't really get into them here. I don't get into the rules of magic here because it's not important. We just kind of have a vague glossing over of how magic works. I just give readers enough to know, like, yeah, this is how it happens. And Teal can't do it right now. More on that later in the book. But as far as alchemy goes, what am I doing shoving alchemy in here? Alchemy isn't a thing, right? Maybe it is a thing, right? I get into this. Maybe it is a thing, but it's like a niche realm within one of the fields of study. It might be more of a colloquialism that, oh yeah, alchemy, it's a handy way to express. It's like jargon that one is participating in one of these various schools of magic. And then I thought, okay, well, yeah, maybe alchemy is a subset of wizardry. Maybe, and this is just, I'm rambling here, right? This isn't something that I need to fix. I'm probably just going to cut the line from the story. But going forward, I need to address these things of like, yeah, where does alchemy, where does potion making fit into the magic scheme? Maybe it is a subset of wizardry. Maybe it's something that's studied and practiced and cultivated over time. But it might be something that, the arcane elements of certain ingredients are distilled into drafts and elixirs that might grant certain individuals boons, right? Maybe this is how the wizards get around healing people because they can't practice the healing spells. Maybe they're like, okay, well, we'll just put healing spells into potions and call it a day, and then we can sell them, right? So that's just something for the future. I kind of like that idea, that wizardry is just like a broad term, and then there's maybe subgroups of it that people specialize in. So those who are maybe less gifted in the actual arcane conjuring might specialize in alchemy because it's a little easier, it's more natural, it's more nature focused, it's more studious, it's more like book learning. You don't actually have to memorize forms and figures and connect with the arcane. You kind of just abuse it because it's connected with everything. You kind of like, you take mint and oregano and smush them together and go, it's a potion because mint and oregano have these types of arcane energy in them. And if I smush them together, you get the potion of tasty food. Yum. Robin made a really good joke in chat, and I'm not going to pay attention to it because I've got to keep working. I've got to keep trucking along here, folks. So throughout this segment, I think kind of after and even throughout describing the classroom, we have some really great hints that Teal is not a good student. And these elements need to stay, but I think they should be more subtle. At some points, Teal seems too proud that she is kind of a bad student. There's a bit here where she mentions, I struggled with the homework, but she seems really confident about it. Like, yeah, I'm such a good ne'er-do-well. Hee hee. And I think this is something we could advance while folding it into the narrative more subtly. we can include these little notions, these little instances that reflect that, yes, Teal is trying her best, but struggling to keep up. We kind of get into this later on in this chapter that, Teal's got a lot on her plate and she's really struggling to balance her school and her out of school, her academic and her, what do you call that? What do you call like life outside of school? Whatever, you know what I mean. She's trying to balance her academic career and her personal career. And she's having a really difficult job doing that. And that stinks. So we should have more little subtle notions of that as we go along. That, yeah, Teal's trying her best. Even when she explains to her peers, she might say like, oh, yeah, I tackled it with good intentions, but I got really stumped partway through. And maybe she might say, I was hoping to ask the professor about it today and, maybe get an extension or something. Teal's trying her best, but she is struggling. That's the idea we're trying to get across here. So we move from the classroom into the hallways. It's decent, but I think we could expand upon a lot of ideas here in these weird, dreary dream hallways. There's a few good instances of dreamy architecture through here. I think at one point she goes past a staircase that kind of just spirals into the ceiling and doesn't seem to go anywhere. Like it just full stop comes to a dead end at the ceiling for some reason. Definitely seen some of those in my dreams. But we want to increase the sense of discomfort, that there are things that just don't make sense. At one point she like, maybe it's later on, she enters a door, and I just described the door as awkward. But come on, if a door is awkward, let's talk about it. Why is it awkward? Maybe it like only goes up 6 inches on the one side and 18 feet on the other. It's got this crazy slant to it. Something like that, super easy. Or maybe she has to like descend into a stoop, right? But there's such a hard edge to the wall above it that you have to like duck underneath and then get to a door and then crawl under the door and then go into the classroom. But on the inside of the classroom, things are just fine, right? The walls are just there. Nothing's, stopping you. Sorry, I keep pausing to look across the room. There's a really big spider hanging out right near my door. Right near the door to the void, there's a great big spider, and I really should squish it, but it's not bothering anyone. It's just sitting there. It's just one of those ones that just sits there. You ever seen those? They just sit in the corners. I hate those. Nasty little things. Anyways, moving on. I'm trying to focus here. Right, so we need to paint some more aspects into this dream sequence that are unbelievable. We should have a lot of these liminal spots that shouldn't exist in reality. And I've just put some more examples here, and I already gave some, so I'll just move on. The job I am doing, Robin, is distracting everyone while I edit something. There we go. So that, who saw that? Who saw that? Who? What? Who? Huh? I don't know what you're talking about. Y'all are crazy. Moving on. So as Teal's going through the school, right, I think she comes to another classroom. She comes to the second classroom and she mentions the old school and the new school, which is weird, but I don't hate the idea. I don't hate the notion of, we're just dropping weird, obscure lore on the reader. Essentially, this is just me telling myself, like, hey, could we keep that idea but bring it up more gracefully? Maybe Teal is ogling something. Maybe she's looking at something and appreciating the aspects of this old school and comparing them to different aspects. Maybe she's in a hall where it's very evident that, like, yep, this is adjoining the new part of the school, and Teal can be observing these changes. She can be walking along and thinking, I always hate coming down this hallway because this is where it, there's no subtle change between the old school and the new school. Just something to think about. Hey, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to get rid of this. Boink. Like I mentioned earlier, we mentioned that Teal is thinking about skipping class, but we should be more subtle about it. And also, we should be more subtle about the fact that she's not paying attention in class. Let me just get rid of that. Sorry. Boink. Click off here. Because these are both kind of big points, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to suggest that Teal isn't a bad student per se. She just can't keep up. She's just really struggling to do what academia wants her to do. It's not for lack of trying. Teal puts in a lot of effort, but she just gets stressed out really easily. She gets overwhelmed. She gets anxious. So for her to keep up with the workload is really demanding. So I think we should expand on both of these notions that, yeah, she's maybe thinking about skipping a class so that she can keep up with her schoolwork, but that means she's going to fall behind in that class. And it's these thoughts, it's her fretting that is keeping her from really focusing on her class. I think if we expand on all those ideas, that she is distracted, that she's struggling, that she's maybe thinking about playing hooky, like she's not a delinquent, but she's definitely open to the idea of just foregoing studies in order to try to keep up with things. I think it'll build Teal as a more like believable school individual, a member of academia of this academy, but it'll also flesh her out a bit more as a character. Even though this sequence is a dream, we are doing a lot of character building here. So as mentioned, and here it is front and center, we return to this idea that Teal feels like she's waiting for someone, a certain individual who, gosh, I'm glad no one was paying attention, is not presently named. It's the Swain, but I definitely didn't put their name in there like a total idiot. But this I already said this earlier. We should have this crop up more often. This should really punctuate her voyage through the academy. Maybe even whenever there's a weird scene transition, Teal stops and thinks, wait a minute, wasn't I waiting for someone? Wasn't I just with another individual? That's kind of strange. I can't remember though, so I guess I'll just keep going. And that's it. That's the whole note. We just should have that crop up more often because it accents the dream. It accents Teal's worries. It sort of builds this idea of like, I don't know how attuned you all are with your dreams, but often dreams are related to REM cycles, and REM cycles come and go in waves. So this is my attempt at emulating that through narrative, that these spots where Teal is thinking, wait a minute, wasn't I waiting for someone, are points in which Teal's REM cycles are lifting and the dream is becoming hazier and less believable. But then she slips back into a deeper slumber. The dream starts taking over and she thinks, okay, well, whatever, I'm sleeping. I don't have time to worry about that right now because, my exams are happening. Oh no, I gotta study. I can't study. They're right now. Oh no. So yeah, we'll just bring that up more often and that would be good. So yeah, as mentioned, the chapter ends up becoming a bit of a lore dump, which isn't bad, but I don't know. I'm just worried that this note is me kind of just worrying that I don't know if this is the best time to have a lore dump, but I don't know when else to do it. We kind of need to build these things right now, but there's no other chance we have to build Teal's past unless we just take an entire trip around the sun later on, which is way too much. The segments that are coming up are already too big. I don't think we can shoehorn more in. If we are going to have some world building here, some lore, I think it's important that we fold the information into the narrative more subtly. Right now, it does come off as a bit ham-fisted, as a bit heavy-handed, and I'm hoping this is just a draft one issue, like, just bad at writing. But, like I do it sometimes, there is a very gentle touch to things, that we don't outright say what each study of magic, what each field of magic pertains to per se. right? We get into this section about chronoplasy, and we start talking about time and the stars in really subtle ways, but we don't actually delve into what the term means. We talk about how bioplasy is kind of a restricted magic, and it's been shunted out to the to be ordained by the clergy. We mention axioplasy, but we don't ever talk about what it actually is. And I kind of like that. I want to do more of that, where we're talking about world building and lore without outright just vomiting on the reader and saying, this is it, by the way, here's your world building, bleh, enjoy it, like they're a baby bird or something. And I kind of said this earlier, that it's not super important that we build magic. It's not crazy imperative for this book, but it is an important thing for Teal. And because it's an important thing for Teal, we need to get the reader in on it. Because if we want Teal to, and like we do, guess what? We want Teal to be the POV character because that's what she is. And if that's the case, then we need to shackle the readers to her a little bit and say, okay, you need this information because Teal knows this information, and Teal finds this. Teal is very invested in this field. Teal is super into magic. So you got to know the bare bones of magic so you can keep up. And if we drop that ball, then okay, it doesn't hamper the story, but it leaves readers really confused, and that's just not good. You never want readers to be too confused. You want them to be a little confused, but not super confused. My phone is blowing up right now. Thank goodness I have it on silent. I'm actually going to flip it over so I can't see. There's a group chat popping off. I'm also going to take this time to click, turn on a lamp. It's getting dark. So this is just open thoughts. This doesn't really have an answer, unfortunately, but something to consider. If we're going to include lore here, we should be more gentle about it. Wow, I write so much about this chapter. Why? It's such a short chapter. Why am I still talking about it? Okay. So we get to these shifts between classrooms. They're pretty jarring. Much like how Teal came into the first classroom and it was almost like she blinked and she was just there. We want to have Teal's fading into these classrooms be obscured, right? There's always some element that hinders her from thinking, wait a minute, how did I get into this classroom? She should almost just be walking along and then she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in this class now. That's cool. I guess I'll take my seat. Or there's one period here where she is sitting, but then she's sitting in a different classroom all of a sudden. We should have something to interrupt that so that we can shift between these rooms, these spaces, these different environments without having to just outright say, okay, it's different now. Okay, it's here now. Maybe she falls asleep in one class or something, maybe she passes out. Maybe she's so obsessed with a book. We can bring back these hyperfixations. She's so obsessed with a passage in a book that she's reading it, and then when she looks up, she's in a different class. How did that happen? Because just saying it happens, just saying she's in a different class is really lazy. That's just bad writing, and I should know better. Come on, this is I want this book to be half decent at least, and part of that is going to be scrubbing shit like this out. I really just want to paint this honestly, just the whole chapter with a dreamier air. There's elements to it presently that are dreamlike. Sure, okay, that's good, that's great, but I want it to really I don't want to mess people up, but I want it to leave readers thoughtful. That, this reads like a dream, but I'm still not quite sure. Like all good dreams, you should never be quite certain where it begins and where it ends. So yeah, I got to step up my game. Like Robin said, I got to step up my game. Come on and jam. And welcome to the slam. Wait a minute. That's not right. This is just an additional note that Teal ends up in this in the chronoplasty chamber where there's all sorts of star maps and constellation guides. And it would just be cool if there was a big planetarium in there, right? That'd be dope. Just put a big planetarium in the center of the divination room and like, okay, cool. This room is clearly focused on stars. And, maybe we can include some crap about like tarot cards and tea readings and stuff like that so that people get a good sense of like, yeah, what divination is to a wizard. Once again, too sudden in the shifting. Teal has a spell where she's really hyperfixating on her studies, which is great, but we need something to latch onto here. We need a little more building on either side. We just need some more padding, really. The ideas before, during, and after these segments here, and this is right before Teal gets to like the weird hallway towards the end. We just need something to lead us in and something to land on at the end. Her thoughts in the middle, that's a good point. That is something that we should lean on for a transition, but there's not a lot to set her up, and there's not a lot for her to land on afterwards. We just kind of get muddled in the middle, and that's kind of unfortunate. We really need to set up this notion, right? Teal's in this hallway, she's walking along. We really need to set up this idea that the act of her being alone in this hallway is a little harrowing. It's a little disturbing. That's just gonna have to do. Isn't that annoying? So this file's been converted from docx. You can see in the top corner, it's a docx file. And OpenOffice tries its best to match the colors, but it doesn't have this same green. So I just have to like, so annoying. Why is this green a different color? I can't even, well, I guess I'll have to save it as an ODT. Anyways, we want to build this scene in the hallway as the spawning point of Teal's anxiety. Things are about to go bad. This ties into the previous point that we don't really set up this scene very well, but we should, because this is where things start to go bad. Maybe even they kind of start to go bad before, when Teal's ruminating on her stresses, on what she's worried about, on keeping up with school. But we should touch more on the weird lighting here. We need to build this dubious air, this sense that everything is off kilter, but Teal should remain nonplussed. Like she's just walking along, things are normal, things are fine, and it isn't until her peers show up and get her worried about what's about to happen that she starts to panic and she starts to vibe with the environment. Her anxiety matches the atmosphere of the scene. We run into a lot of busyness as they start to run down the hallway, this group, and I think the only way to really fix that is to stick to one idea. We're all over the place with trying to incorporate these different ideas. You know, her tomes vanish. She panics. The corridor twisted and turned sharply, becoming thinner here and thicker there. Okay, there's just too much going on, right? If we want to stick to an idea, let's stick to an idea. And I think what it should be is that the hallway is slowly closing in on her. This runs parallel with the theme we're building, that Teal is in a space that she's trapped and she feels like she can't get out of. I'm definitely not stealing ideas from Hypnagogia. Get off my back. Don't look at me, Robin. I see your accusative gaze. Huh. Anyways. We're all over the place, and man, did I really put a 30 in there too? Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. How did I get all the way up there? Jesus. Yeah, there's too much going on. We should really just stick with one solid idea instead of bouncing all over the place. This passage I wrote is half decent. It reads much better than what's going on right now, so I just stick with that in the future me. Good job. There's this great little moment where Teal and her friends They all kind of disappear as soon as they enter the examination hall. But I love this idea that everyone who's present just snaps to look at Teal. And I think we should build upon this notion. Right, as I have it written right now, they kind of just look over, but I want this sort of uncanny movement, as if their necks snap, like almost as if everyone turns in unison, like they're puppets all being controlled by a lever or something, right? Like they're animatronics that are a flip is being switched, and the switch says, turn and look at Teal. Even though like such a thing would be physically impossible, I think it would heighten this disturbing sentiment of like, okay, we're still in dream territory. This is still weird, but we're dipping our toes into Nightmare Town. And as mentioned earlier, yeah, her classmates should just disappear. She should be with her friends, and then we should be very explicit that they're just gone. They have just evaporated. An additional note to this is that Teal should just find herself in line. She should just find herself part of this checkerboard pattern as soon as the professors start to speak. So there's sort of like an assembly moment where Teal's entering, she feels caught off guard, everyone looks at her, and then in the next moment, before she can really even register that she feels awful, that all these eyes are burning into her, she blinks, and then, yep, she's in line. She's just there with everyone else, listening to the professors. She has fallen in line immediately, despite not moving, I think is a big thing, right? She's just there. More dream logic nonsense. And these last little things are kind of just little points, little things we have to correct. Teal thinks about the lecture hall that they're in, about the examination chamber. She thinks like, okay, yeah, wait, didn't they just have a lecture in here last week? Teal should instead think that these halls are often converted for events such as big old grand soirees and balls and dances, and where, I don't know, maybe people waltz and have drinks and confab with one another. This would be a great time if we did that. Just saying, if we were to go down that avenue, that would be a great time for her to do some more thinking about somebody she might have just abandoned. Obviously she gets cut off, but we should just restructure this a little bit so that it ties back to the previous chapter, it makes more sense in the present, and it gives Teal a jumping off point for like, wait a minute, wasn't I just waiting for ... So when Teal is called to do to take the exam, to be the first pair to take the exam. There we go. I got it. We should heighten this idea that her peers are gazing at her, that they have these unfathomable eyes, that their staring is unrelented. We should even go as far as to say, like, yep, they're just staring at her with these hideous red gleams in the dark. We want to build this space as dark and foreboding, and then those around her who are judging her harshly, unspeakingly, without words, do so with ire and maybe a little bit of disgust. We shouldn't totally rule that out, but I think we can set the scene way better here to build Teal's anxiety from a point, and that point being everywhere around her. This idea that there's almost like this comically pervasive light. Teal gets shoved by a student like out into the fray, and it should almost be like the room is so dark that all she can see are the piercing red stares of her comrades, and then once someone shoves her out into the open, the rest of the students just disappear, and it's Teal who's been thrust into a spotlight, right? Almost as if the rest of the world, the rest of this chamber is falling away from her as she gets up to go to this arena. She walks forward with this light following her to appeal to the address, right? She's been called forward to do battle. So she heeds the summon. she doesn't really know where she's going, and then just as she's walking, she ends up on the arena. We can really just, I was saying, oh, let's build the scene earlier. As we go along in the dream sequence, we don't have to build the scene. This is definitely a spot where we can just snap, break the sticks, and then Teal's just there because she needs to be. She's going to the arena, she's worried, she's stressed, she's out of sorts, and then bam, she's in the arena, she's ready. Well, she's not ready, but she's there, she's present. We do some good foreshadowing here. We should, this is me just saying, hey, could you use more of this iconography of cold and snow, of Teal feeling like she's icy and she can't get warm? Because, hey, guess what? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Maybe we could set this up as a little dash, a little sprite, a little spritz before Teal falls asleep. As if, maybe she's getting herself cozy, but she feels really cold or something. I don't know. Just an idea. We should do some more foreshadowing regarding Teal's iciness. I don't want to say, like, we're not using this in the sense of, like, personality, of her being icy, of giving people the cold shoulder. We're using this in the sense of, like, she definitely is able to, but we're using this in the sense of her ability, her magical ability. And read the chapter. I don't have to explain Teal's magic to you. Just read the chapter. Last point. And this is okay. So what I do right now is I lead the chapter off. I cut it off so that readers can, right? Let me walk you through the joke. She's on stage, she's on this arena, and she turns towards the individual she is about to duel. And breathlessly, she takes in sight, and she's like, no, of all the people, it had to be, and then bam, it had to be her rival, right? Does that make sense to people? That it's supposed to be cut off, and then they read her rival? I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if people read it that way, because it's not set up the best, but I really like it. I really like the gag. I really like what it does thematically here too, is if, these chapters are spread so concisely between each other that there's no mistaking. It's just like, no, the chapter 31 is a dead ass continuation of chapter 30. I don't know if that picked up on mic. I guess it is. That's me running my hand across my desk. Don't mind me, folks. And Robin brings up a good point, right? In text, maybe it doesn't work so good, pardon me. Maybe it doesn't work the best. But in a paper book, as somebody reads the last word and turns to the other page where the big flippin' title says rival, then they're going to put one and one together. I don't know, right? I don't know if there's a better way to do it. Maybe I just rearrange. Maybe I rearrange the chapter number and the title so that it would be her rival, chapter 31. That's an idea. I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's an idea. Something to consider. That's it. That's the last note here. We're going to pivot and dive into chapter 31. There's about the same amount of notes. I don't think I'm going to make it the whole way, but let's find out. I got to do this. I'm going to take another drink. Robin in chat is talking about getting laid. I don't know what that's about, but I'm just going to keep pressing on with my notes here. So the chapter starts saying, hey, can you guess what? The rival's there. But I think their appearance should be more dramatic. Right now, yeah, they're illuminated by a shaft of light. But we don't really, I don't know. They're just there. They're just standing there menacingly, which is fine. But I think we should almost have this, like, you hear the clack of the spotlight turning on, and then wham, there's the rival. The lights burst to life to reveal them. That's like how potent this individual is in Teal's subconscious. On that same note, we present them with something of an info dump, and I really hope we can find a way to explain them, to build them up as a character, right? Because I have to build up that they suck, that they're an a-hole, before we get to the point where Teal resolves in herself that, yes, I'm going to try my best to beat them up. And I don't like that. It sucks. It sucks that we have to give this info dump. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a better way to do that. If we can incorporate because we don't really have a long time with the rival. We've got one chapter here to deal with them. Much like a lot of the other characters in this book, we really only have so much we can do. There's only so much we can do with each character. And so it's hard to build this character that is clearly a part of Teal's past in all of like a few paragraphs. We could maybe look at this one way and say, okay, well, let's just split up the information and toss it throughout the chapter. Cool, that might work. All we really need to know at the start is that Teal hates the rival and that she kind of is afraid of them. We can talk more about why as we go along. Maybe as like with each of Teal's assaults on the rival, maybe a little bit more is revealed about them. Maybe we get to learn why Teal is assaulting them so fervently. Why she's like got this in her head that like, no, she needs to beat them. She needs to beat them or at least not go down without a fight. Those are her two goals. And that's one way we can maybe do it. We do get some nice world building regarding Elvish society here. And those two might be better peppered about. You know, those might be details that incorporate themselves with the rival, because the rival, if you haven't read this part, the rival is an elf. And we could use that. We could use that detail to both, you know, bolster the rival, their position in Elvish society, and talk about Elvish society at the same time. So once again, there's just like, yeah, there's a lot of info dumping here. And there's some important caveats here that we should bring up. That Teal doesn't solely hate the rival because he's better than her. What she hates about him is that he's a jerk. He's a jerkwad. He's arrogant. He's pompous, and he's not explicitly because he is a pureblood elf, but because he is a pureblood elf who's made her life a living hell. You know, Teal gets along with a lot of elves, but this one in particular is like the quintessential holier than thou, arrogant, stuck up prick. You know, kind of like the standard bully trope. And part of this goes a little deeper because Teal sees similarities between them two. Teal understands that, yes, her upbringing, her status is quite similar to the rivals, but really the rival had everything handed to them on a silver plate because they're a pureblood. They're just an elf. And also they're a dude, right? We get into aspects of sexism here. There's also this subtext that, yeah, the rival's family basically just bribed the right people. They had money to throw around. And that's not right. You know, this dude's really only here because his family bribed the right people and he's already got a job in the capital. Teal essentially just hates everything the rival stands for. And it doesn't help that they're just a total prick. They're just a total asshole. Nothing they do in this chapter is likable, and that's intentional, and that should stay. If I had to tell future me anything, it's, hey, make sure this dude is not nice. We're supposed to not like them at all. A total meanie, as Robin puts it. Yes, I couldn't have said it more aptly. So how do we deal with this? I don't know. I really don't know. If we break it up and sprinkle it throughout the chapter, that might work, maybe. But we got to keep moving on. We have this idea that the judge, one of them, there is kind of this panel of judges, and they're all very ethereal, and they only manifest when they want to, and they're kind of there, but they're off screen a little too. And I don't like the idea that the judge just appears. They should just be there. They didn't manifest. They didn't just spawn. They're just where they were. They're just where they are, rather than where they are is where they weren't previously. Teal should definitely think like, oh, I don't remember them being there, but the judge just appearing, the judge just spawning out of nowhere, doesn't really make sense. You know, they just conjure themselves. Sure, okay, they can. I'm not saying they can't do that, but if that's what they're doing, let's talk about it. And that shouldn't be what they're doing. It's just that they're there. And this is just another little bump of dreaminess that we're shoving in. Teal has this chant, right? Part of a magic duel is the two combatants saying their piece before they fight. And I love the idea that Teal is really petty about her introduction. Part of it feels really clunky though, which I dislike. Her poem here is fine, but we need to present her pettiness in a smoother, more concisive manner. Well, we also don't get a reaction out of the rival, which is such a wasted opportunity. Teal throughout this would definitely be trying to remain calm and unfrazzled, but the fact we don't get to, like, all we get out of the rival is that Teal spies a twitch upon their brow, right? Like, come on, let's dig into it. Let's talk about how Teal is trying to get under this guy's skin. Just trying to piss them off, right? Because she totally has the right to. She definitely doesn't, but whatever. It's just a missed beat that is very wasted. We just waste an opportunity, and that's not good. This is just a bit that we mentioned Weilin, and I said that wrong, but forgive me. And we just need the Hansa here. Here it is right at the top. We need the Hansa for that word. I'm wondering throughout this if their repartee here would be in Elvish. The remarks would be very difficult to translate, but it would fit the theme that the rival is taunting Teal, right? Taunting her using their native tongue. And from that we can think, does Teal reply in Elvish? Does Teal use an Elvish haiku? Or on the flip side, is it more scathing for her to like understand the Elvish spoken to her and just completely refuse to use the proper terminology to even to address the rival in their native language is like, you know, an added layer of pettiness for Teal from her perspective. Like, sure, I could, but I'm not going to because you don't deserve it. These are just ideas, right? Is it a better idea? Is it more scathing? I don't know. I think it's fun. It's a fun thing to think about, but ultimately how it reads, how it would be to translate the two verses would be very difficult. That's definitely a big aspect of it. It feels a little bit more natural for Teal to recite her poem, her last word, quote unquote, in common, but I don't have a good reason why. Probably just because I have a bias, right? I'm writing in this apparent common, and it feels better for me to write haikus. This is a Tonka, actually, in, you know, English. It feels more natural, and as such, I'm more tied to it as like, yep, Teal should be speaking this. It's really just a bunch of bias, but I don't know, something to consider. Elvish here, Mandarin, Hansa would all work really well. It would be thematically appropriate, but doing what we're doing now is thematically appropriate too. So it's kind of just like, oh, which one do I favor? This is just another sticking point that we defer the chapter's poem, right? Those with keen vision will see, there's no poem here. Remember how before I was saying we should have a poem at the start of every chapter? Oops, we didn't. We didn't do it this time because when I was writing it, I thought, well, there's already poems down here. I don't want to overload on poems. And I've since changed my mind. I've since completely 180'd on that idea because I really hate that there's no poem to connect chapter 31 with the rest of the chapters here. I don't think we should get rid of these. I think we should just put another poem at the start. I think that would just do better. I don't know what the poem would be about. I'd have to conjure one out of thin air. But why is there not a poem here? I probably just got lazy. We have this really quick transition to the duel beginning, and I like that. That's good. This should be a snappy moment. We should have a little thing here. We kind of, I don't know. We pointed it a little bit. We mention it subtly that, okay, maybe the rival started casting before the judges okayed, before they said begin. But I think we could be more apparent about that. I think we could be more overt that, yeah, the rival is probably cheating. The passage is here, and then no sooner had the professor's lips closed than a mote of fire hurled through the mist towards Teal. We get this idea that, okay, sure, they started casting right away, but we're not necessarily sold on the idea that they're cheating, that they were starting to cast before the examiners, before the judges here, okayed the start of the duel. We should almost have this mote of fire start streaking towards Teal, like she sees a glimmer from across the arena before the professor actually says begin. Just little hints to drop, right? We're trying to build the rival as not a very good person. They are a naughty boy. But how do we do that? We can do it with little things like this by saying very subtly, yeah, they're probably cheating. Yeah, they're probably not playing very fair. It becomes very apparent by the end of the duel that they are not a nice person, but we can litter the start of this interaction with more character building. We don't talk about how the judge disappears. They just disappear into a cloud of mist. Okay, great. We got to pick a lane here. Are they disappearing because it's dreamy? Or are they disappearing because they used magic? One or the other. If it's magic, then we got to have them cast. We got to have them follow the rules. If it's dreamy, they should just not be there anymore. No cloud of mist, no nothing. No poof, no magic sparkle. They're just gone. They just were there, and then because it's a dream, they're just not there because it doesn't serve the dream narrative. This is mostly me just saying, like, sure, okay, we could probably break this first part into two segments. One where Teal defends herself, and another where she observes the rival's arrogance and the judge's indifference. Right now, it's all just crammed into one paragraph, and it doesn't read poorly, but I think the weight of both ideas need their own segments. They need their own paragraphs. Teal does what she has to do, and then she looks to the judges for reaffirmation that she was wronged, and she becomes indignant and immediately, right off the hop, just knows, oh, these D-bags aren't going to help me. I'm on my own here. Darn, that sucks. This is me just patting myself on the back. We can ignore that one. So we come to the magical duel where there's a lot of pinyin being thrown back and forth because, if you can guess it, both of these casters are uttering their spells in Elvish. So this whole segment is going to require a lot more research to incorporate the proper Hanzi to represent the two casting in their native language. And these notes are me just saying, hey, dummy, you're going to have to do that in the future, and you're probably going to have to hire a sensitivity reader. If there is a fluent Mandarin speaker in chat who doesn't find my book incredibly boring, hit me up. I'll hire you. I will not be able to pay you very much, but you can be the first applicant to be the shitty book sensitivity reader. And sensitivity reading would just be going through my Hansa and saying, this is stupid. You're stupid. You're dumb. Burn your book. I hate you. And I would go, okay. Okay. Not going to do that, but thanks. Thanks for the advice. Moving on. We do a lot of sound effects here. Shoom. Whoosh. Fish. Right? Little things like that. I don't know. It's fun. It makes the magic more magical. And I think we should maybe even take that a step further and display the sound effects as a different font. We've been talking about this. We've been batting around the idea that different elements should have different fonts, right? Like Teal's thoughts, her Elvish speech, her common speech. Maybe even every different character has their own font related to them. Sound effects, too, I think, could be another element where we use a special font to present them. And this is me just being a huge dork by being like, oh boy, wouldn't it be great if when we were doing the audiobook, we actually played the sound effect? Where we actually incorporated sound design into an audiobook? I think that would be delightful, personally. Spoiler alert, I'm intending to record an audiobook once this is all said and done. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I can barely talk about my dumb notes for 2 hours, let alone God, I'm turning into fucking Scooby-Doo. Let alone record an audiobook. Case in point, everyone. Jesus. But I thought that would be a great idea. If we do ever record an audiobook, we'll incorporate the sound effects as sound effects. These are really small points. We're chugging along. This is great because my throat hurts. I don't say that too often, but wow, it hurts right now. That's for sure. I was really hoping there would be more blinks there to sell the joke, but I'm just going to keep talking. Wait. I can save this joke. My throat hurts about as often as my knees do. I'm going to cut that one in post. That one's getting removed. Hey, if anybody knows a censor, if anybody wants to be hired as my censor for my streams, you can run this shit. I don't want to run it. Door's locked, Robin. You can't get in here. The void is locked to little birds. The window is closed. So, okay, right? Some of the descriptions of the magic are kind of lacking. We sort of just say, the thing happens. This happens. And it's really hard to find a balance because they're doing a lot of movement. They're doing a lot of acting that is required for the casting. I'm hoping this is all kind of something that buffs out in draft 2. Like, just the text will flow better. There's not one instance I can point to and be like, oh yeah, this one is an example. This one's bad. But, yeah. I hope it all just works out in the end. Boy howdy, I sure hope it all just comes together in the end. Yeah, but like, because even this note says that the back and forth, the general flow of the duel is pretty good, but we just get lost in some of the fluff. The fluff is important. It is good, as we're about to talk about, but I think we just need to be more concise and more precise about what we're saying and what we're describing. Yeah, and this is kind of just building off that idea that the explanation of the vocal and somatic components, it really comes out of nowhere. We really just like, there's casting. And then it's just like this paragraph here, it's just a wall of text that's saying, this is how casting works, by the way. It's so just blockheaded. Just so ignorant of me. Like, okay, oops, I forgot to explain how magic works. Let me do it in a paragraph quick. What was I thinking? It just comes out of nowhere, and it takes all of the flow out of the narrative here. It's so weak. It's such poor writing. given the changes we're going to make in chapter 8, given the changes we're going to make in chapter 28, we might have already explained all of this, which I hope for the sake of this chapter we have, because we don't need to, hammer home these basic rules. We don't need to have Magic 101 in the middle of chapter 31 here and just deflate all tension. If we do need it in here now, we need to do it neatly and we need to do it subtly. We need to, similar to how we're going to build up the rival, we're probably just going to have to pepper these explanations throughout instead of just having them be a solid, dense paragraph of, it's not stupid. I don't hate it. These are the rules. We need to know them, but we need to know them either before we get into this situation or gently we're informed throughout the situation. Just having it be a paragraph here is so dumb. We get into a few small notes that Teal's defense here, right? She summons a defense to protect herself from the motes of fire that the rival is launching at her. And we should describe that her shield is under bombardment, that she's actively maintaining this defense as it's pelted. The motes of fire themselves lack a lot of magical charm. They kind of just pew pew. They just get shot out of the rival. How do they get shot out? Where do they come from? Where do they spawn from? I like the idea that, and I'm totally just ripping off Dark Souls here. I like the idea that maybe they spawn kind of like a halo, like a circular halo beyond the rival, and then they're launched at Teal. I describe the impact as like a dust that settles, right? The motes of fire hit the shield and they almost explode into a puff of dust. And that's lame, right? We describe Teal's shield as being icy, and we describe these motes of fire as being little balls, little wads of fire, almost like little stars. Then, okay, dummy, knock knock, hello? Are you there? Are you there, brain? Could we maybe describe it as, I don't know, steam? When fire hits ice and bursts into steam, would that not be a better effect than turning into dust? God. It's one of those things that you just reread and you're like, ice and fire, don't that make steam? Don't that evaporate? Don't that boil to ice and then evaporate it? Why am I using dust? Okay. Moving on, right? Teal is feeling pretty panicked. I'm getting ahead of myself here. And I'm also putting 3s and 0s in my text again. There. I gotta stop clicking on things. I swear. I gotta stop clicking. But I need the mouse over here so I can scroll. Ugh, it's just a big mess from start to finish. I can't even find my mouse. Where'd you go? You're over here. Wait, you gotta be over here, right? You gotta be behind me. Come on, mouse. We gotta work together as a team here. Unfortunately, Robin doesn't have a puppet. They don't have a model set up, so they can't use 0s and 3s. Also sometimes a 1 and maybe a 2, but mostly 0s and 3s. Mostly these two. This is a meta joke, and I'm glad our second viewer took off because, boy, they are missing they're missing the goods. They're missing the funny ha-has. Because as anybody who's gone to college or university knows, when you skip class, you miss all the best jokes. You miss all the funny ha-has. Oops, I peeked. I'm sitting too close to the mic. I sat up. I moved too close to the mic. As anybody who goes to college or university knows, when you sit too close to the mic, that baby's bound to peek. That baby's bound to peek. You can't sit too close to the mic. What are you thinking? Get out. Get out of there. This ain't a podcast. What are you, some like deadbeat white guy who lives in the basement of his parents? Nah. Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. Definitely wouldn't be me. I live in the void. I'm a box. I'm just trying to dox myself over here, aren't I? Whatever. This will get cut. This will get cut in post. So Teal launches this barrage at the what the frick happened there? Y'all seeing this? What the frick? What's going on there? Okay, enough with the jokes. I gotta focus. We're almost done this. So Teal launches this barrage at the rival. It's kind of a counterattack. And there should be almost more of a feral panic to the rival when they realize that Teal essentially launches all these duplicate Teals at the rival to try to beat them up. The rival dispatches all of them, which isn't good. They realize, wait a minute, all of the Teals are gone. And there should be this momentary panic, this feral sense that like, oh, I gotta find the real one. They should have this desperate moment. And right now it's kind of just like, okay, they're looking for her. They gotta get her. But we really want to ramp up this idea that despite the rival's prowess, Teal comes really close quite a few times to, I don't want to say dispatching them. I don't want to say dealing with them, knocking them out, clobbering them. Teal comes really close to proving her mettle, to proving that, yes, she is a capable individual. She is a capable wizard. She just has maybe an unorthodox approach to this kind of thing. So by including this moment of feral panic where they're thinking, oh crap, I gotta find Teal, we're hinting to the reader that like, yeah, Teal scared the shit out of them. Teal nearly had them there for a second. Had her assault landed, had her idea gone off without a hitch, okay, yeah, she would have bonked him on the head. It probably would have been a, total knockout. But that's not what happened. This is just an additional thing. Teal casts these duplicates, but there's no vocal component. She is just allowed to whisper it, that's fine. But, this is something we just leave out. We just set up the rules. We just used a whole awful paragraph to set up the rules, and then I immediately stopped following them. Just remember that in the future, dummy. If we're going to have her not enunciate it, let's say for certain that she whispers it, that she's quiet about it. Teal in this next bit is kind of paralyzed. She ends up paralyzed by the rival spell, and we don't really describe how it feels to have magic done on oneself. How does it feel to be magically paralyzed? How does it feel to be hit by a magic wad of fire, right? We don't really get into that at all. And that sucks. We got to fix that. How does it feel? Just let's talk about it. How does Teal feel here? That's all we got to include. Super easy fix. The fight goes on, and Teal notes a lot of discrepancies with this duel. For example, the first one that comes up is that the rival just throws Teal. They just use magic to fling her body, and that's really against the rules. Teal knows it's against the rules, and she makes this plea to the judges. But it deserves a little more clarity. We don't talk about why she cries out, why she feels cheated, or why even this rule is there in the first place. We need to tie the idea that this structure, this history, right? And that's kind of what we're doing here is we're building a history of magic dueling. The history is there for a reason. And we need to tie the rivals' faux pas, their breaking of this rule, into why Teal's trying to get the judge's attention and say, listen, no, this is an illegal move. We are both building the ethos, right? We're building the idea of what it means to have a magical duel. We're building the idea of this magical community. And we're also tying it into Teal, who's being wronged in this moment, who is both being ignored by the judges and wronged by the rival. And right now we just don't do any of that, and that's stupid, and that's dumb, and that's a waste of time. We really waste an opportunity here to do all of that good things. All of that good things. All of those good things that I was just talking about. We don't mention that Teal gets up. We don't mention that Teal stands up after this, which is just silly. We're once again missing out on a beat where we could be talking about, we could be describing Teal's mental state, that she's trying to calm herself from the last assault. Goodness. She's trying to calm herself from that last assault. Or we can frame this, right? We can frame this as part of her dream. That yes, she is just standing up all of a sudden and she stops and thinks, wait a minute, I don't remember getting to my feet. We can lean into the dream logic and just have Teal going from one beat to another without really transitioning properly. One way or another, we should address this problem, right? Why is Teal just up on her feet? Let's either talk about why it isn't there, or just put it in. Just have her get up and use that as a moment in the narrative. Another thing we do is the rival just has an illusory copy of themselves here to dupe Teal, but we don't get a sense for the fact that they cast it. Should we mention this? Should we mention that they have a plan in motion? Does it really matter? Or maybe doing this just heightens how much of a cheater they are. These are just questions, right? These are just questions I have. Is this a thing we should address? Is it something we should fix? I think ultimately the beat still stands, right? Teal goes in for another assault and she's rebuffed once again. But do we build upon these beats? I don't know. I think, yeah, we definitely have to a point. But I don't think we need to be too heavy-handed about it. It's a difficult thing, right? At the same time as saying, oh, we should have a beat where Teal stands up because we need to know how she's feeling, we could also just skimp out on other things and be like, do we need the rival to follow the rules? Teal had to follow the rules because Teal's the POV character and we can't be cheating with her. But the rival in a dream, the rival could probably do some cheating. It almost builds the narrative. It almost works with the narrative. If we say, yeah, the rival, whatever. How did they conjure that illusory copy? I don't know. Don't worry about it. It's a dream. They're a big cheater. Don't worry about it. We have some good elvish insults here. But I think if the rival is going to taunt Teal, it should all just be in Elvish. It should all just be more of a scathing commentary. As if whenever they're trying to provoke her, they're speaking in Elvish, because it's almost as if they're only speaking to her. They don't want the rest of the room to know what they're saying to her. They don't want, and the rest of the room might look poorly on them if they knew what they were saying to Teal, but they're just going to say it in Elvish so that, yes, only Teal knows what they're saying, and they can save face while they're doing it. We get into Teal feeling tired. She's experiencing what's called arcane fatigue. And this is also a really important point going forward. But we should incorporate a little more nuance rather than just like another paragraph explaining, yep, Teal's tired. Teal is not feeling good. Teal is maybe getting a headache. It's not good narrative. I don't know how many times I can say this in one episode, but it's not good writing. We should have Teal notice aspects of herself as she rises, right? The first time we mentioned she gets to her feet, how is she feeling? Again and again, we should have her reassess, how is she feeling? Her legs are starting to shake. She's starting to pant through her teeth. She's shivering almost. When she readies an assault, she notices how dull the world feels around her, as if the edges of her vision are starting to fade, as if really the only thing that matters is what's directly in front of her. Another aspect of this is just how loud her heart is starting to beat, right? This is something we've kind of dropped throughout here. Where is the heartbeats? Where have they been? Where did they go? That's bad. We were building a theme and we were doing really well. Where was it? It's been gone. No, not even in chapter 30 where they really use very much. Could we maybe incorporate that theme here, please? Because this is when it would be really important. Please and thank you. Throughout this battle, we get a really good sense for how persistent Teal is. And this is just me wondering, like, is that still a valid thing to have Teal do if this is a dream? Does it really matter? And then like a counterpoint, I wonder is the whole book's been kind of weird. Does it really matter if this part's weird? Does it read any less important to her as a character trait if the whole book has been weird? I don't really have an answer. I don't think so personally, but I wrote the book, so I have a huge bias. I think from my point of view, it makes sense, right? It seems like a good thing to do, that we're building Teal as this persistent, this dogged, this almost stubborn individual, that she's never going to stop. And that's kind of her like one defining feature is Teal just has an endurance and she has a drive and she never stops. That gets her into a lot of trouble sometimes. But, you know, like every good character trait, every character flaw, so to speak, they propel the character in interesting directions. And that's what we want here. And I think ultimately building it is good. So it'll probably stick. We'll probably still keep this element of Teal keeps trying even though the chips are down. We lose a lot of description here, unfortunately, in the later half of the fight, where there's thunder, there's lightning. Teal's defense, too, seems to fall flat. There's some good acting, but the descriptions here need some beefing up. They need some protein. We got to get these descriptions a little protein bar or two, you know, get them some weights, get them pumping the iron. And it's mostly about consistency here, right? If we've been describing magic as being a magical thing earlier, we should keep describing it as being a magical thing. We don't want to crap out halfway through. It gets to a point in the fight where Teal is, quote unquote, forced to play to the rival's strength, but she really makes no attempt to close the gap. What she wants to do is get closer to them because their strength is ranged attacks. But we never get this idea that she's trying to subvert that she's going out of her way to close the gap, to get rid of the distance between the two. Because if you're at a range disadvantage, the first thing you want to do is make the range less so you can get in and do what you want to do. If you are fighting with a sword against somebody with a bow and arrow, how are you going to hit them? You either got to run away or you got to get close. Teal makes no effort to do either of those, and I kind of understand why, but we don't explain it. We don't explain why. She should be definitely trying to put an effort into trying to approach, but we need to describe that she's being repelled. It is the rival's superior? Isn't that a Pokemon? It's the rival's superior skill that keeps Teal at bay. They know how to play the game that they're playing. Teal, however, is pretty incompetent when it comes to this style of dueling. Hence why she was trying to do all that rigmarole earlier. She's not good at this stuff, but we need to describe that. We need to say, yep, Teal is being kept at bay. Yep, the rival's assaults are really too much for her to bear. Yep, all she can really manage is deflecting and counterattacking, neither of which are working really well because her spells are slow. She is not proficient at casting these kinds of things, and that should be really apparent by now. And it should be apparent because what she's casting is milder. Teal reverts to casting ice magic, which it's never overtly said, but it's subvertly said that casting ice magic is way easier than casting fire magic or electricity. That'll probably be something that gets brought up like later in, I think I even get into it later in this book, but it's definitely a thing that's going to come up in the second book. And we dip a little bit into it, but we need to flesh this out. That yes, Teal is trying her best to do what she knows she has to do, but she can't do it. And hey, guess what? This is my second point. We don't get into why ice is an inferior skill, why it's the inferior element type of thermoplasty. Is this something we should explain right now? I think this is something we could pepper in a little bit to give a reader something to chew on, something to grasp throughout this segment. But once again, I don't want a wall of text. This is a great bit that perhaps we just described that Teal's spells are slow and heavy. We don't exactly explain why. We just kind of wave her hands and say, yeah, Teal's really only capable of this. She can't grasp the higher levels of thermoplasty. She's only capable of doing these lower level spells, and we describe those lower level spells as being heavy, slow, burdensome, cumbersome, and altogether just, I don't want to say infantile, but remedial. Were Teal a better caster at this, she would be flinging motes of fire like the rival is, but alas, she isn't. And it's not because she prefers the element, it's just because she's bad at this. And that's really what we need to address. That's what this last point says here. We really just need to address the Teal's awful at this. The Teal is terrible at dueling. And a big part of that is she just doesn't get it. She just doesn't understand this class of magical refinement that others seem to be so keen on. When it comes to magic, Teal is more of like an illusionist or a conjurer than she is a duelist. And it's something we need to bring up, and I think we can do that, right? Like if we travel up from the bottom of these notes, we can do what we want at the start. We can explain how she's struggling by starting it by saying she's just awful at dueling. She can't keep up with the rival. She's being kept at bay because she's bad at dueling. Why is she bad at dueling? Because she doesn't have the skills. She's diversified herself. She's focused. She put her stats into a different magic tree. She's out here focusing on alteration magic instead of destruction, right? For all you Skyrim nerds, for all you Elder Scroll nerds. Teal gets hit by some fire here, and we just don't talk about how much that hurts. Does it matter? It's a dream. Should we talk about it? Does it ruin the illusion of the dream if we talk about it? I think if we're erring on making sure we describe how Teal feels, we absolutely need to talk about the fire. However, if we want to maintain this air of dream, if we want to keep the readers at bay and have them like walled off from knowing if this is a dream or if it's some sort of alternate reality or if it's a memory, then we can't. We ultimately can't dive into that, and we need to make certain that we're overt, that we're waving this away. That Teal knows it should hurt, she's reeling from the blow, but whatever. It doesn't seem to matter right now. It doesn't seem to matter that her clothes are singed. She just has to get up and keep fighting. When Teal finally gets up to resume her attack, we need to describe that by the end of this fight, by the end of, towards the end here, that Teal is really struggling just to stand. She is desperate. She forces herself up. She should be shaking. She's singed and seared. Oh boy, that was tough to say. She's singed and seared. There we go. I got it on two. We need to drive the point home that she's losing, that Teal's having a really bad time. We really don't mention how volatile, how tired she is, how exhausted, how she's pushing herself through her arcane fatigue to maintain this fight. And that's unfortunate. We should really be hammering home the idea that Teal's losing, Teal's having a really bad time. And she's forcing herself to have a bad time, right? That's an important subtext here. The judges come in quite a few times and they're like, you should stop. You give up, and Teal basically tells them to piss off every time. And as an additional note, we need to be talking about how tired she is, how wiped she is, and she really doesn't have the energy or the mental state, the focus to continue, but still she is, right? We're tapping into this dogged persistence. There's something about the audience here, but I think we should get rid of that. The judges should just appear. We want things to be really jarring, especially towards the end of this dream. Teal should be cluing in, like, oh yeah, where did the audience go? Wait, the judges are just here? We should have these brief moments of lucidity. And these can be attached to Teal thinking, wait a minute, wasn't I just waiting for someone? Shouldn't I be with someone right now? We can have those, right? Because those are meant to be the ups, the peaks of the REM cycle that would lead one to lucidity. And this is another aspect of it. Teal should be starting to become aware that, like, oh, wait a minute, weren't there people here? Weren't there people watching? Where did the judges come from? Little things like that will help carry us throughout the dream and to the end here. There's a moment here where the where the rival calls Teal a filthy half-blood, half-breed, but once again, they would probably say this in Elvish just to save face. We want to describe, yep, they're awful and they're terrible and they say slurs, but they're so awful and terrible that they're saying slurs in a different language so people can't understand them. Teal ultimately gets blindsided by a spell, but the positioning of herself before she gets struck is really foggy. We don't talk about where the missile comes from, where the judges are, where Teal is, and why she whips herself around. We need to establish where Teal is. And I kind of argue with myself, should we leave this as dream logic? And I at one point, I think it's fine that the judges, like we've been saying, the judges just disappear. They're just not where they were. But we need to position Teal here so that her being struck off guard makes sense. It's just poor writing. I just don't establish at all where Teal is during this part of the scene, where the rival is, where everyone is relative to one another. And when Teal ends up getting hit, it really lacks the impact it needs. On that note, Teal getting hit should be really impactful. She should take this, almost like a boxer getting hit by a knockout punch. This should clobber Teal and send her streaking to the ground. We almost want to give the sentiment that Teal's head smashes. It is just slammed against the ground. And additionally, we want to describe the pain that would go along with that. Unless we're doing the dream route where we're hand waving away the pain, but we can still emphasize it with acting, with sound effects, with other elements that will strengthen the idea that, yep, Teal just got clobbered by something she wasn't looking at. It was probably not a very fair action of the rival, and she gets friggin' floored because of it. Oh man, we still have 2 more pages. Jesus, I thought we were almost done. Okay, well, I gotta keep going. We're almost there, and this is gonna be like a 2.5, 3 hour stream. This is why we have to swap over to pre-recorded videos, folks. This is just starting to take too long. People aren't even watching the stream, so I don't know why I'm doing this. It's for my benefit, right? It helps me record, but if it's going to be this strenuous, then I should just record in parts so that it's not so hard. I can tell I'm losing my voice the longer we stream here. But we've already started, so let's try to finish. We split Teal's consciousness into 2 here, and I think this is a really good way to describe having an out-of-body experience. And we don't need to get too deep into this. We don't need to delve too deep into how this is happening or why it's happening, because she's dreaming, and this is just how dreams work sometimes. Sometimes in a dream you're doing a thing, but you're seeing yourself do a thing. Sometimes your dreams are in first person, but you still know where you are relative to everything because there's some sort of omniscience to the dream. So Teal gets back up though, right? Teal gets clobbered, she gets back up. But she got back up and she beat him. I forget how that quote goes. I got back up and then I pwned that guy. Something like that, right? But anyways, she gets back up and we describe her kind of like a zombie. That she's stiff, right? But I don't like that. I don't think we should be leaning on preconceived tropes. We should just describe her movements as uncanny and disjointed. This could be a part where we incorporate some frigid aspects, as if she moved despite frozen joints or frostbitten limbs. We're stitching in these ideas that we were talking about, that Teal is cold. That Teal has this natural affinity for ice. And maybe that's kind of part and parcel why she can't do thermoplesy that well, because she's just kind of has this weird natural tie to cold. So just some ideas. No more zombie, please. Don't like that. I start to build up this idea that Teal is kind of being possessed, that she's not there at all, and I think that's something we should build up. And we can do this in a few different ways, right? Teal throughout this scene is rebuffing the rival's assault. And we should like, let's go all out, right? Teal's wand is on the ground. Let's talk about that. Teal leaves her wand on the ground. She doesn't even try to pick it up. Why would she bother? She's in this possessed state. When she deflects these motes from the rival, she just uses her hands. We can talk about how they burn the gloves off of her hands, about how she's singed, her knuckles are singed from basically just swatting away these bits of fire, and she's not even bothered about it. She just doesn't care. We could even have like some anime bullshit, right? Maybe she even starts to heal. Maybe it's very clear that her knuckles are burned down to the bone, but before everyone's eyes, her fist just starts to reform, which harkens back to earlier when we very explicitly say, by the way, healing and stuff is not allowed by wizards. Teal, who is a wizard, is currently breaking the rules. I just think this would be a super metal moment, and I don't know. Me, personally, I love the sounds of this, but it might be taking it a bit too far. Hey, I already said that last point, so that's a big win. We come to the segment where Teal has her wand again, right? And this is me kind of just like, oh, how can I fix my bad writing? Teal has her wand again all of a sudden, but I think it would be cool, right? If we're gonna have this point that she starts off without her wand and she's just smacking away the spells, it would be dope if she were to just like, okay, well, I need my wand now, and she does like some force pull bullshit. She just reaches out to her wand and then bap, it snaps right into her hand. And we're doing this to build this uncanny, this monstrous idea that Teal is not currently herself in this dream right now, that she is both observing and doing, and she's part of the reason that is happening is because maybe she's possessed by something. Maybe something really weird is going on right now. We never talk about what the weird is, but if we're going to lean into the weird, let's freaking do it, because we can make this scene a lot cooler if we do little things like this. Teal spawns a blizzard, right? We mentioned Teal spawns a blizzard and it kind of wreaks havoc, but the blizzard itself lacks a lot of beauty. The summoning of it is all very flat, and that's unfortunate because we can do a lot here. We can really layer on the what's that called? The literal descriptions. The I don't know, we can just make it pretty, right? We can just make this a nice scene. We can describe it as being harrowing and powerful and sublime while being awful and terrifying and cold. It's all just, there's nothing. It's just a nothing burger of a scene right now, and it kind of sucks. The rival, too, isn't very panicked. We don't really talk about how they're feeling, how cold they're feeling. And it sucks. We need to be building up this idea that this blizzard is slowly consuming everything. It's even consuming the dream, so to speak. And the force itself, right? This tumult is focusing itself. It's a vengeful energy that is swallowing up the rival bit by bit. Because we get to this part where Teal is trudging towards through the snow and the wind. Teal is trudging towards the rival as they slowly are swallowed up by ice, and that idea itself needs way more malice. We need to bring this brooding despair that Teal... Oops. I don't know if y'all noticed that. OBS just disconnected. Did we lose any frames? Well, no one's gonna watch this stream anyway, so F it. If there's a part missing, then there's a part missing. What was I saying? Teal needs more malice through it here. It should be as if she's possessed by a bloodthirsty entity. Because she is, right? She wants revenge. She was wronged. She wants to destroy the rival. Teal had blood on her. Shouldn't that be frozen to her? Shouldn't she have like this kind of disfigured, kind of disgusting visage to herself? I'm trying to build this metal, this really harrowing imagery, because this scene is so cool, but I fuck it up, man. I really don't give 110%. I really don't put my whole butt into it, and that sucks, man. There's such a cool core concept to this ending scene, to the whole scene throughout, to the whole chapter, but man, I botch it here. I do not stick the landing. I fall on my butt. I do a triple sow cow and I fall on my butt, and it sucks. Um, yeah, that's basically it, right? You can see on my notes here. You can see in my notes. I just come up to the point where I say, write it better next time. That's all I got, right? Just go through all of this and write it better, because the notion, the scaffolding here is so cool, but the house we throw up is made from sticks and straw. If we're gonna build a house, you've read the book. Come on, don't be a dummy. Build that house out of bricks. Let's make a cool house here. So we get to the ending. Finally, we're at the ending where the chamber is collapsing in. And I don't dislike it, but it ironically lacks weight. There's not enough punch to it. We don't get a good sense for the grandeur of the situation, that there's danger to it, that, there should be pieces of debris flying around the place. There should be, I don't know, like an evacuation notice, so to speak. And this is hard to do because we kind of did away with the audience. But what's going on beyond the arena? What's going on outside? Is this blizzard so powerful that it's tearing down the sky? Can we see the sky? Do we see anything? What of the windows? Has the glass shattered? Is there such a thick atmosphere? Is there so much snow blowing around that we can't see beyond Teal's very limited perception? I don't know. We don't talk about any of it, and that stinks. We're trying to build this, this rising tension leading to a crescendo of an ending. And man, whatever. There's a snowstorm, I guess. The ceiling falls down. Whatever. Whatever, man. Just whatever. I'm so sick and tired of this, man. I'm just, whatever. Just end the chapter, man. Just, whatever. This is just an example, right? At the end of the chapter, when the center of the dome, right, there's this huge dome that we spawn out of nowhere, but when the center of the dome falls towards Teal and the rival, and Teal just looks at it as if she's just waiting for it to come crashing down on her, I don't think, oh no, Teal, look out. I don't think, Teal, what are you doing? And those are the reactions I should be having as a reader. I should be thinking, Teal, get out of there. What are you doing, dum-dum? But I don't, because there's no impact here. There's nothing at stake. And maybe that's because I ran too hard in the dream direction, so nothing's really at stake. But we got to adjust this. We really need to adjust the volume of this ending, the depth of it, so that when everything comes crashing down and the chapter ends, we want to keep reading. That's kind of the vibe I want here, is that the readers immediately come to chapter 32 and go, well, I got to know what happens next. A shitty Netflix moment. On that note, we really need to strengthen the idea that Teal is having an out-of-body experience. One that she is present for, one that she is witnessing happening. We need more instances of this theme. Oh, okay, I get what I'm saying here. So why I'm saying this, why I'm saying we need to heighten the sense of Teal having an out-of-body experience, is because paradoxically, we need this last bit to have more weight, but we also need to juggle the ball that none of this matters. The statement that it doesn't matter right now, it doesn't seem to matter, that things don't seem to bother Teal right now, needs to keep coming up again and again. Wasn't I just waiting for ... Well, I suppose it doesn't matter right now. What's this called? What's that called when you put that stuff in a mine shaft? What's that stuff? The scaffolding? Is that just what it's called? I already used that word. We're trying to erect these supports, right? That at one point make this segment powerful, but support the idea that Teal's dreaming and that we can eschew logic. We can just brush it aside because things don't really matter right now. And what we're trying to do is build that as a theme, that things don't really matter right now. And sure, we're saying it in the context of this dream, right? Haha, dreams, it doesn't really matter right now. But that's what Teal's feeling on the inside, that maybe things don't really matter right now. Maybe I am just kind of stuck here forever, and maybe I should just accept that. And that's the subtext here, of course. But if we do this, if we pepper this chapter with a little more oomph and float it with these instances of, it doesn't matter right now, it doesn't matter right now. Wasn't I just waiting for, well, okay, no, it doesn't really matter right now, does it? This last line will hit. This last line will be the impact we need. Sure, the roof fell down on Teal, but the real impact is that, well, it doesn't really matter right now, does it? And hopefully that rings out, and hopefully that reads with all the subtext that I want it to, but I don't know. I'm dumb. Maybe I'm just reading too much into this. Maybe I'm just trying to force too much on one aspect. But hey, folks, we did it. It's been 2.5 hours. We did it. We're the big winners. Good job, everyone. I'm so proud of you. Viewer number 2 for staying for like an hour and a half. Good job. I'm so proud of you. You came and you went a few times, but hey, you stuck it out. Robin, you've been here all along. You have to be here contractually, but I'm proud of you too. That's it. That's chapters 31 and 30. I'm not going to do a review of the notes here because there's a lot of things to fix, and I don't remember most of them. The chapters are good in their own right, but we need to establish more of a dreamy quality. We need to do better character building, and we need to do better world building. And there's a lot to fix. There's a lot to fix in these chapters, but it's because these chapters are lifting so much behind the scenes, subtextually and up front. They're doing a lot of hitting. And as we're going forward, we're going to get into the weird zone. Chapter 32 is a wild one. Chapter 33 is a wild one. But like I said, this might be our last little stream. This might be our last little stream for a little while, because streaming is hard. Streaming is very, very difficult. It takes a lot out of me, and I'm not good at it. And also, no one shows up, so like, why bother? We'll probably do more game streams, but this might be our last stream for the Draft Diary series. I'll let y'all know going forward. But yeah, this has been a 2.5 hour stream where I talked about how to fix my book. Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your whatever. I'm trying to do a quick outro here because I am late. I was supposed to start cooking dinner 20 minutes ago, so it's going to be a late dinner tonight. But thanks for coming, everyone. I hope you eat a good thing because I'm going to go make a tasty dinner, and you are all not invited. Thanks for coming, though. It's been a blast. And I'll see you all in the next one. Maybe. If there is a next one, I guess we'll find out together, won't we? For now, though, bye-bye.